surprise, surprise, I was one of those people that in coloring books, I colored outside the lines. Just one of those people. I don't kind of stay in the framework. I color outside the lines. So what I want to talk about this think, feel, do exercise as maybe a way for you to think about building more flexibility into your life. And I'm going to start there and just say, so let's say that you are in a place where you have the flexibility on a daily basis that you're looking for. How does that feel? So you start with feeling. And this is actually one of the change management techniques that I think sometimes a lot of companies forget about, is that we really don't change until we feel something. But yet we want to start with the thoughts. We want to start with the key points. We want to start with the logic. We want to start with the business case. We want to start with why you should change with all the thinking. But actually, we really don't change until we have the feeling of how we want to feel when we change. So let's talk about flexibility. Let's use this tool from the growth work and use it right now. Imagine you have the flexibility that you're looking for, and maybe just imagine a day where you can come and go, you have the movement you want, you have the time where you're doing your genius work, you're contributing, you feel good about that. Maybe there's other commitments you have in your community or family or whatever, and you have the flexibility to move amongst all those spaces in your life. And I want you to imagine, how does that feel, and actually feel it. So do I feel peace? Do I feel in control? Do I feel empowered? Do I feel confident? What are those feelings that you will feel or do feel when you have that flexibility in your life? Okay. So imagine that for a moment, the flexibility. And you can really move as you want to and see fit, and can almost architect your day, your week, and have that flexibility. There's a peace, there's some fulfillment, because you're getting to do the things that fill your cup up, so to speak, or your bucket up, or whatever you want to refer to it. You're doing the things that are enriching you and supporting others, and potentially you feel safe and confident and all these things. Wonderful. Great. So you have this flexibility and you want to remember that feeling. I almost, again, want you to put it into a ball and remember the feeling. And then think about, okay, so in order for me to have that feeling, what thoughts or beliefs do I need to have to get to that feeling? So, for example, if I want to feel freeing, what is a thought or belief? And it's okay if you don't have it yet. We're creating right now. We're creating it. What would be a belief you'd want to have so you could ultimately get to that freeing feeling? So, kind of re-engineering backwards into the beliefs. What do I have to believe? What thoughts? What do I have to think to get to that feeling? So joy in how I'm worthy of this joy. Yes. Yes. Perfect. It's good to feel good. Whatever thoughts, help. And that's it's such a straightforward one. I'm creating my own time. Yeah. I'm the creator. I'm Harold with the purple crayon from day one. I've got my purple crayon and I'm drawing, creating the reality that I want to have with the flexibility I want to have. I have value to add. I'm in the process of attracting the situations, people, process, things where I can contribute. There's all kinds of possibilities. I'm just brainstorming and offering ideas to add. You are the designer. You are the creator. You are Harold with the purple crayon. in our lives. That's why I love a children's book because and we create reality twice. So from a manifestation perspective, we create it in our mind first, and then we create it in the physical. I think Levi and I were having a conversation like this where he said he had in his mind a solution, an engineering solution for something. And it was in, if I recall, Levi, you said, I had it in my mind first, and now you're creating it in the physical. So we create things twice. Okay. Only thing I'm adding to this is I want to know how you want to feel once it's created first. I want to anchor that in. Why? Why do I want to do that? Because feelings are a vibration. So I want to know what vibration you want to live in. And I do this because vibrations have different megahertz. So if I want to be in joy, which is pretty high up there, I think it's over 700 megahertz, maybe 600. Love is 500-ish. So if I want to architect into my day or create my day to have joy as a vibration, then how do I have to think to be in that vibration? So these are the thoughts I need to cultivate. These are the thoughts I need to start to have around me. And when I say around me, I literally put thoughts on Post-its on my mirrors and on a bookshelf. So like one of them is, it's good to feel good. That's a good thing, a reminder, so that I'm constantly putting those thoughts in my head. Why? Because once we learn how to read, we can't unread. Make sense? You see a stop sign, if you know how to read, you can't not read that stop sign, right? You can't look at it and go, The word stop is in your head already because you know how to read. So why I put stuff around me, motivational quotes, Post-its, is because I will automatically read it, which automatically puts the thought in my brain. It's a neuro plasticity technique. It's just a brain rewiring technique. So if I read it, it solidifies. Opposite is true. If I write it, also true. If I write it, it becomes more real. So when I was working on manifesting my flexibility, I typed up this beautiful quote in PowerPoint and printed it out and put it around. It didn't have the same effect when I hand wrote a Post-it. Why? Because the kinesthetic act of writing it was more, it just grounded it in more than me creating a PowerPoint on the computer. So these are small things, but there's a reason. There's a reason why we use them. So I handwrite on a Post-it and read it. That's 3 aspects of technique. I ground it in by writing it. I'm reading it. Now it's in my brain. So this is kind of what we do with affirmations, or thoughts that we know we need to have to create our reality. Okay, so we know we want joy. Now we got some thoughts that are going to keep us in that joyful place. And it might be, I deserve joy. I want daily, I am going to live my life with daily joys, small, big, whatever. And then we get to the inspired action. So what are those small things, which was in day 1 growth work, right? What are those small inspired steps? What do I need to do to make that creation real? Okay, that's how we manifest. That's how we create the reality we want to live in. Now, there's a few other things to consider when we want to manifest. And I think flexibility is such a good one because I know, and I shared this on day 1, where I felt very trapped in the very calendar and appointments and schedule and work and expectations that I had kind of signed up for. And I had said yes to all of it. I own all of it. Just, I'm the one who said yes. I'm the one who created the environment that brought stress and strain to myself. Okay. This was before I had some awareness about how to do it. When I decided that I wanted to have more flexibility, and it actually started, interestingly enough, not when my twins were really, really young. it started more when they were in middle school, and I realized they had some learning differences and some learning needs, and I might need to be it might be more helpful for me to be around for the homework time, which is more 4 to 6, which wasn't quite aligned with a maybe traditional work day of going from 9 to 5 or 9 to 6. And I realized I needed to start to create some flexibility in my afternoons. So this other priority of being available and supporting my kids who really needed some extra support came into play, right? So there was a reason why I wanted to start to explore this flexibility piece. Um, so you start to realize, okay, this is what I want to manifest. This is I have it in my head. So how do I have to think to get to that flexibility? Well, I had to think that my supervisor, my boss, my department will be open to my request for flexibility during this time, right? I had to have some affirming beliefs that so I would make the ask, because sometimes we have to make a request to realize our creation, which was very courageous for me, given all my, beliefs about work and all those types of things, to make a request that I could schedule my work in a way that I didn't have meetings during that time or tried to avoid it so that I could get this other need met and I could come back in and do the work differently. So it's a matter of starting to so what was the action? The action was I had to make a request of someone who had some governance over my schedule because I didn't feel completely free on my schedule at that stage in my career, and make a request so that I could do that. And I had to shift some other things. Like I potentially logged on to email earlier in the day before the kids woke up so I could keep that precious afternoon homework time available. So you see kind of how these are small actions. And I had a backup plan if my supervisor or work person wasn't amenable, but I find that most people are nowadays. If you're going to get the work done, at least the kind of work I was doing, which it just was the result. The work had to get done, whether I was doing it at different hours of the day was okay. Those are the steps. So that's why we use the feel, think, do, even though the tool is called think, feel, do. I always start with the feeling to then generate the beliefs to then get to the actions. And then we bring in yesterday's faith, be loyal to those beliefs. So if you say, I am worthy of joy or I'm deserving of joy, be loyal to that belief. That's our faith. Remember, being loyal to a belief or something that we can't see. And that's how we manifest it. So that process sometimes means we have to be flexible in our own thinking. We have to look for potentially new beliefs that support the feeling. And it's so interesting because I was coaching somebody this morning who, and I have this too. So I'm not judging in any way, but had a fixed mindset about certain things. Certain things had to be a certain way. Certain things had to be done a certain way. This is what, and a judgment with it. This is what a good person does. This is what a good mother does. This is, very much a very fixed viewpoint, and felt very strongly about being the role model for her children, which is a beautiful, beautiful idea. And therefore, things had to go a certain way for her to be that role model of what she wanted was safe and security for her children. And I said, and of course, me, the color outside the lines lady, had a different perspective to offer. And I said, and I mentioned yesterday that consistency is my 34th talent. So guess what? Kids did not go to bed at the same time every day in my house. Guess what? Now, do I think consistency in bedtime is important? I do, because I've read the research and doctors say and sleep and all that kind of thing. But however, my kids know how to be flexible. My kids know how to deal with change. And so so it's a little bit of everything, right? I need to bring in some consistency, but total consistency is like, how's this kid going to behave when they go to college and bedtime isn't the same time? And I'm being dramatic, right? But, and I said, so look, I said, I'm not perfect. I'm a human being. I'm a mom. And I didn't do things. I mean, I believe I'm a role model, but sometimes I'm a role model in things don't go the way you plan. How do you handle it? Versus I'm going to secure and ensure it goes as planned. I'm going to put my kids, I'm going to deliver the consistent, perfect experience for my kids. I'm the first to say, I showed them a lot of anomalies in life. We have pancakes for dinner quite a bit at certain points. We have breakfast for dinner. Sometimes we have dessert before dinner, not always. And so, I mix it up. Part of that is that's who I am. All of it builds learning. And so what I shared was another perspective too, because this person was holding this. I could see it on her shoulders. This, oh my gosh, I have to be this role model for my daughters, and it's got to go this way, and it's got to be perfect. And I could just see the weight of it on her and the pressure. And I said, there's another way to look at that. So if bedtime doesn't happen, or guess what? We're all having Captain Crunch cereal for dinner tonight. Guess what? We still had dinner and we still got fed, and milk has some goodness in it. Calcium or whatever. I said, everything can be a role modeling of learning. And sometimes you have to improvise. Sometimes you have to adjust. Sometimes you have to be flexible. And that's kind of how this topic of flexibility came to me. Was more of yes, I wanted more flexibility in my time. Absolutely. Part of why I went out of corporate to work on my own is I want total flexibility. I need it. I want it. I crave it. I have an 84-year-old mom with memory issues in my house. I got I need flexibility. I need to be able to deliver the outcome, deliver the change project, but be okay if I'm doing some of it at night and some of it in the morning, and just trust that I'll deliver it to you. I'm just not going to do it maybe during the windows of traditional work hours, right? So I need that flexibility. But what I would say is, I think it's important for us to flex our thinking, and see other perspectives, see other ways that things could happen. And in the coaching process, that's one of the benefits of it, is to say, I could offer another perspective to that person in a non-judgmental way, to say, have you thought about this? Have you thought about doing it that way? Have you considered that there could be goodness in it not going as planned? That there could be something good, back to faith, that could come out of it. That there could be almost some fun and excitement to have cereal for dinner. All depends on how you sell it, right? Not that you have to sell things, but I mean, seriously, it is, I think, the flexibility, it's that elasticity of building that into our lives, and building it in early into our lives, into our kids, into students in school, that there are many ways to do things. I feel very fortunate. I mentioned that I moved to Germany in Europe. I was 28 when I did that. I am so glad that I left the United States and got to interact with at a minimum 15 other cultures. And back in the day, it was different currencies. There was no euro. There was no, I had my little plastic bags of currencies. So when I would go to 3 countries in a week, I had my monies to go. I was exposed to so many different perspectives, so many different ways to do things. That how I thought things needed to be done in a very task-oriented American culture. And then I go to a very relationship-based culture like Italy and realize, oh my gosh, I've got to adjust. But guess what? They're different ways, but we're all getting the outcome done. And that left such an impression on me to be flexible in my thought process and really build it in. And so let's use an example of, let's say you've been chewing on something, a problem, and you're just kind of feeling a little stuck. And I get there too. Like, I'm only seeing it one way. I'm only seeing it one way. It really helps. And this was in the leadership space. You know, I always throw a little bit of business stuff in. It's called, fancy name, adaptive leadership. It's the most current terminology from my friend who works at Korn Ferry, very fancy firm. But the idea is that when imagine you're on a dance floor, okay, and you're doing the dance, you're doing the daily dance. And so I'm dancing with this problem or this issue that I'm chewing on. I'm dancing, 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 dancing. And all I can see is this radius of where we're dancing. And what one of these teachers that was teaching adaptive leadership shared is, imagine you're in a club and there's a balcony section. And they said, pause the dance on the dance floor and go up on the balcony, and you get a whole different view of the dance floor, a whole different view, right? Not only, and imagine you're still dancing now, you see yourself dancing, but you see all kinds of other people dancing, and maybe they're dancing differently. Maybe they're doing different moves to the same song. It's the whole forest from the trees idea, that when we're so into our issue, challenge, problem, thing we're looking at, we lose perspective. And so the way we build flexibility is to shift our perspective, however we need to do that. So and sometimes I'll say, oh, you know what? I got to go up on the balcony for a minute on this one. Or maybe I go up to the balcony and going, yeah, I don't see it any differently, which has happened. Then I phone a friend who I know thinks differently than I do, because I just don't like feeling stuck personally. And I do get stuck in my own thoughts, my own experience, my own ways of looking at things. But I will tell you, we have the capacity to flex and open our minds to experiences, possibilities that potentially you never would have considered just on your own. And why is that? Well, because we only know what we know. Darren and I were having a conversation about diversity, and it's interesting because I feel very fortunate. I grew up just outside of New York City, so I met people speaking all kinds of languages, every race imaginable, different color skin, different heights, different languages. I just was so fortunate to be exposed. And when I got to college, and Darren and I went to the same university, that's where we met people that they only saw other people that were like them. Well, how could they know other perspectives if they had never been exposed to it, right? It just is what it is. If I've never met a person with a different skin color, if I've never met a person of a different religion or whatever, different way of seeing the world, I wouldn't know potentially that there is another way to look at the world. There is another way to see things. And so that's why I believe so strongly, look at your inner circle. Who are the 5 to 6 people you interact with regularly? Are they just like you? Because we do that. We have this mirror neuron thing in our brains where we'll bring in. And one of the things you might want to consider is, wow, maybe I need to bring in a few different types of perspectives so that I keep broadening my perspective and don't become so insular in it. But we can do this ourselves. We can just say, what else could have happened? What we're doing here is shifting our perspective, which to me is one of the key things that helps me be flexible. It really, really helps me get out of a fixed mindset of my initial interpretation of what's happening, my initial go to, which often is personalizing it to me and thinking I did something wrong. That's just my pattern. Maybe others can relate to that. When it actually has nothing to do with me, I did nothing wrong, and the person is trying to hold back a sneeze because it's allergy season, right? So I'm going to give you one that I'm going to share it because it was a big part of my healing. It's a little bit of a story. So I mentioned that I grew up in an alcoholic home with codependency, etc. And part of that was my dad was the one on the Irish side. What I've learned is that this desire to tune out and escape through alcohol is a generational thing, actually on both sides of my family, but very much so on the Irish heritage lineage. And part of growing up is he had an affair with another woman, and ended up ultimately moving to Ireland with that person. And so my judgment at the time as a teen and in my 20s growing up and all that kind of stuff was bad. That was wrong. Probably did bad person, all the things that I felt was wrong about that and the impact it had on the family and the role modeling of relationships. And I mean, just weigh it on, it was not a good thing. It was a bad thing. Fast forward to 2 years ago, when I was going through one of the energy healings and energy courses, and part of those courses is you go through an activation, as some people know. And during the activation, I get some insight that, because one of the things that we know about energy work is that some people with certain spiritual gifts might use chocolate and alcohol to numb it a little bit to know how to manage it and deal with it, because there's not a lot of schools out there saying, what do you do if you're a channel? What do you do? And so I had this knowing that my dad had spiritual gifts and that's why he drank. Whoa, total perspective shift, total like 180, that they had a spiritual gift and they didn't know how to handle it. Born in what, 1930? Who was helping people with spiritual gifts, back in that time frame? Maybe there were people, but he didn't have access. And I went, oh, whoa, I had a totally different perspective of the drinking. And that there was, potentially some spiritual messages coming to him. He had studied to be a priest and left it. So there's a definite, like when you start to put other data points together, you can see the connection to the spirituality. And so I'm like, whoa, mind blowing, right? Then I get a message. And again, these are just other perspectives, that the person that he ended up being with was his soulmate. And he was meant to be with that person, but didn't know how to handle it, didn't know how, neither one knew how to end the relationship. And back in the day, divorce was like the big, like wearing the scarlet letter, the big D on you. Like it was something people just didn't do so readily. So they just grew apart and stayed together. And I was like, wow. And I was so grateful for that shift in perspective that I'd never come to at any other time in my life, because it allowed me to see my dad in a completely different way. And I don't know what's true, actually. I don't know what's true, but having that other perspective helped me heal, if that makes sense. And it really doesn't matter what's true, but it helped me see some other ways to view him so that it wasn't so judgmental, it wasn't so antagonistic. And it also allowed me to remember the really good times I had with him. And I was joking with somebody, I said, I loved my dad before 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We had a great time. Then the bottle opener came out. But I have amazing memories of him before the bottle opened. And the only problem with the bottle was it just created crazy uncertainty and you just never knew which way it was going to go. And sometimes it was fine and he just drank and fell asleep, and sometimes it wasn't. But that perspective was a gift. I view that as a gift to open up my thinking. So, and sometimes we can't get there on our own. Sometimes we need to tap into other perspectives, friends, other pieces. But I will tell you, if you are chewing on a problem, you're dancing with a problem this close, and you just can't see out of it, try some of these other perspective taking techniques to build in flexibility in your thoughts. Go up to the balcony or say, what else could be going on? Just ask the question, what else could be going on? And if a new perspective gives you some peace, grab it. And again, that guidance on my dad, and again, I don't know if it's true, but it gave me peace. Take it. If there's a perspective that can give you peace, grab it. Grab it. Why not? Why suffer? Why suffer when you can have peace? So that's what I think about with flexibility. I think flexibility is a couple things. One, being able to shift our thoughts. The other flexibility is being able to shift our energy and vibration when we need to. So when we find ourselves dipping down, and we know energy is always oscillating, okay? Energetic waves. We learned about those in science. So we know it's going to dip. But we can also trust and have faith that it will go back up. The key is to manage the dip and maybe not let the dip take you down so deeply or for as long as it might. So there are certain things that, wow, I would really perseverate over for weeks. And now it might be a day. That to me is progress. That to me is progress. I think we'll always have things to perseverate over. I'm very realistic about this human life. The key is, how long do I stay in that state? And what can I do that's healthy to work through it versus now I'm going to eat my pint of ice cream and go escape. That's kind of my goal on this flexibility is, can I manage how deeply I go and how quickly I can work through it? But I expect to dip. I expect it. And that's why gathering these tools are so important, because when I dip, I know I have a breathing exercise that'll help me. I have music I can put on that will help me. I can walk outside to my mailbox and that helps me. I can drink a glass of water and that helps me. So the whole idea is, have your go-to list. I can read my Post-it and remember a more elevating belief. And that allows you to be more flexible, and it allows you to not dip to the depth. So few things now. I'm doing some of the logistics a bit later than I had planned on. But I want to tell you about something I'm very excited about. I have a coaching program that I have worked on and tuned and fine-tuned, and now I am finding the courage and the passion to make available. And so you're the first to hear about it. And it is a 6-session process. And I'm not going to go over details because you're going to get a link to look at the details about this program. But it's all about healing your past to free your future. And I'm passionate about it because, again, me who likes to color outside the lines, I'm noticing a trend in self-development that it's all moving to group work. You're in groups with these big gurus, these big names, and um, you don't necessarily get access to them one-on-one to work on your unique situation. And so I want to do the opposite. I want to work one-on-one with people on their stuff directly, deeply, with some fun and joy and encouragement. And so I'm kind of doing it differently. Surprise, surprise. Coloring outside the lines, because I found, and I've worked with these amazing gurus over the years, and I've gotten a lot out of the group work, but I've never gotten them one-on-one, really. And I have been working one-on-one with some people, and what I see happen in 3 sessions, 4 sessions, 6 sessions is incredible. So I think it's an accelerator for folks. So if you're at a point where you really want to accelerate what you're working on, your healing of the past, you want to be moving on from it and freeing up your future, I invite you. I would love to work with each one of you one-on-one, truly. And I'd love to work with your family and friends. And so I always welcome referrals as well. I've worked with people's husbands. I've worked with people's 30-something kids. You know, it's such an honor for me when I'm referred. And when you take a look at the information, and I just do ask if you would take a look, it would mean a lot to me. It's a mixture of coaching and energy work. I can't separate them now in my life. And so there's healing in there, like there's energetic clearings and lifting, as well as coaching. There's growth work opportunities between sessions, and some recorded meditations I've done. And so if you like having my voice in your head, it's a good solution for you, because you can listen to my recorded meditations, my energy clearings, etc. And please, if you find your initial reaction is like we talked about yesterday, I don't have dot 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 the time for this or whatever, let's brainstorm, and flexible thinking, flexible opportunities, flexible perspectives. I would just really, really be honored to be play that kind of a role in your journey. I'm so passionate about it, because I am now so happy and joyful in my life. It's like I want to bottle it up and give it to everybody, but I know it doesn't work that way. You have to do your own work and your own healing. And I would just be honored to be a part of that journey. So Dominique is going to offer the link for you to take a look at. But I just wanted to mention that as something that, it's hot off the press, putting out there for yourself or for others you think could truly benefit from it. And like anything, I have worked with, like I said, other people's spouses and partners. It's always confidential, what we talk about, but it's very gratifying for me to see both parts of a relationship grow together. But sometimes one person has to grow for the other person to grow and come along as well. There's growth work today about flexibility and perspective shifting, but I really hope you can make it tomorrow. We're going to do some really cool integrative energy work. And I'm just going to put a nugget out there that I want you all to fully feel the energy behind unconditional love. I really, really, really want you to feel it.